age does training start?
Well, with thoroughbreds, we start training horses at 2 years of age. Not when they're babies, not when they're 1 year old, but when they turn 2 years old. And the birthdays are all the same. It all happens on the first of the year. Even if they were born in May, their birthday's on the first of the year. So when they turn 2 years old, they start their training, and that's very light training. And they probably, most of them won't run as 2-year-olds, but a lot of 2-year-olds do run eventually, but it's usually later on in the year. They start training a little earlier in Florida because the weather's nicer, so their 2-year-olds run a little earlier. I try not to run my 2-year-olds because I like to let them grow up a little bit more, but the 2-year-old races are very popular races, and I usually wait till they're 3. Okay, and then they can race until, well, they're not allowed to race at this track after they're 12 years old.
Okay. Do the horses train in cold and wet weather?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do the horses train in cold and wet weather?
Well, you were out there in wet weather,
So
and they do. Actually, you know, they love cold weather. They go out, they get all frisky. In fact, they're sometimes a little too frisky when the weather's really cold. And they train in hot weather too. They train in all types of weather.
Okay. How deep is the training pool? You already answered.
Yeah, that's about 6 foot deep, and they don't touch the bottom. They actually have to swim. But there's a long stick that connects to their halter, so that when they walk them around the pool as they're swimming, so that if they duck their head or something, you can pull up on them. Okay. Because some horses swim better than others, just like some people swim better than others.
I actually have been in a 6 foot deep pool. It was like for diving.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, green questions?
No, I have one more.
Okay.
What type of training distance do thoroughbreds run?
In training or in races?
In training.
Well, in training, usually they'll do 2 miles. Different trainers do different. As I told you, that when they're first starting out, they may just jog 2 miles, and then they may jog 1 mile and gallop another mile, and then sometimes they may gallop. But when they're training going fast, it gradually goes higher and higher. In other words, for initially they'll probably run fast for 1/4 of a mile, and then they'll go to 3/8 of a mile, then they'll go to 5/8, then they'll go to 6 furlongs, which is 3/4 of a mile. So it varies, and usually it goes up. You go longer and longer in your fast training as the horse gets fitter and fitter.
And the races are how long?
Well, the races vary too. The shortest race we race early is 4.5 furlongs, and then but then it can go to 5 furlongs, it can go to 5/8 of a mile, go to 3/4, and it goes all the way up to a mile. And I think the longest race we won here is a 1 mile and 5/8. So.
Okay, so we are on.
And some horses like to run longer. Some horses are much better when they're running longer. That's my horse up on the top up there. She won the New York Oaks, and that's Pedro Rodriguez is the jockey on that horse, and that was a 1 mile and a 16th, and that's the one she won that one.
Siobhan, it's your turn for green questions.
Are you finished with your blues?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one green question next and one blue question.
Well, do your blue, and then we'll go to green. What's your blue?
Does each horse have its own trainer or do they share trainer?
Some trainers only have 1 horse. Some trainers have 5. Some trainers have trained 50 horses. So it depends upon how many owners they have. And at this track, a large percentage of the trainers also own their own horses. They don't have outside owners. But the bigger barns, there's about 10 really good big barns that have like 30 horses on the track and maybe more at their farms. They have outside owners a lot, and they had 1 trainer though. Okay.
Okay.
I trained 3 horses, so to give you an idea, it just depends. That's plenty, believe me. It's like 3 kids, you know.
Okay, So,
But at one time, I had 90 horses. I owned 90 horses, and I was racing 57 of them
wow.
with one trainer. That was me then, though.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only. Okay? All right.
Okay, what type of saddle is it? English saddle, Western saddle, same saddle, or trainer?
The ponies that go out and take the horses back and forth, and sometimes take them around the track. When some horses are a little bit rambunctious and they have a pony next to them, those are Western saddles. On the horse itself is an English saddle. Yeah, it doesn't have that horn on the front of it. And the racing saddles are even smaller. They're tiny little. They hardly look like a saddle. They're only like yay big, and they're very light. The whole idea is to be very light. So the jockeys have very tiny saddles that they use in racing. So they're different sizes.
Saddle right in that picture.
That's a Western on there, and that's one of the pony guys. He was an outrider at that time, and they're the ones that sit on the track, and if a horse gets away, catch him. And that is a Western saddle.
Okay, Sean, you're next.
But the one on the top, you can barely see the saddle on the one. See the one on the top up there? See the picture on the top? See the picture on the top? You can hardly see the saddle because it's so tiny, because the jockeys have really tiny saddles. Okay?
Okay, so Sean, your next question is what type of bridle?
Yeah, what type of bridle?
Well, they're all tight. They're all.
Wear
I'm sorry. Go
hard
ahead.
bit, soft bit. Which one?
Well, now that's interesting. Some horses have metal bits. Some horses whose mouths are maybe a little sore have rubber bits. So it can be either one, and that depends on the horse. Most horses have metal in their mouth, and they're fine with it because the way their teeth are set up, it doesn't hurt their teeth because it's back in the back corners of their mouth. But some horses, just because their mouths get sore sometimes, they use rubber bits. And there's all kinds of bits that go in. There's bits that have things on the side that help control the horse's movement of their heads better. There's on the market there's all kinds, but mostly they're metal.
Like, I rode this pony once and she didn't have a bit at all.
She didn't.
No.
Okay. Well, that's
Her
good.
name was Chloe.
Chloe? Well, that's nice.
You could still pull a little bit on her, but she was tough. She would not stop.
Okay, I think
I did.
We got another green question for me?
so we know the answer to the next one, right? Has to do with...
Thoroughbreds wear horseshoes? Yes.
Yeah.